My people are destroyed, he says, for a lack of knowledge. And then in Isaiah 5:13, he says, my people go into exile for their lack of knowledge. Now you say, oh, well, exile for their lack of knowledge. Do you know what exile was? Slavery. The cruelest forms. Murder. Rape. Pillage. A suffering like nothing you and I could ever even understand. You don't think a lack of knowledge is dangerous? It's extremely dangerous.
Process. Do I want you to be just a bunch of yes people saying, oh yeah, well the epidemiologist said this, or the governor said this? No, I don't want you doing the groupthink thing. We saw that in Jimmy Jones in 1978, where we saw almost 1,000 people go ahead and drink cyanide-laced Kool-Aid. You know what? That was groupthink. I don't want us there. I want Americans to be engaged, and I want us to understand what's happening.
And that is exactly how I feel. Because it seems to me as if Americans these days have gotten way too comfortable with just believing any and everything that's being told to them, without bothering to go do any real fact-checking or researching of their own to verify that anything that's being told to them is the truth. And that is starting to become a very big problem, and it is going to start becoming very detrimental to us all if we don't start opening up our eyes, paying attention, and listening. Now, before we get into this video, I'm just going to issue a quick little disclaimer. Now, just like the good old Dr. Mike did in his recent video, so-called fact-checking Plandemic, which this video is going to be about, where he used clips from the Part 1 Plandemic documentary that was released throughout his whole entire video for the purposes of criticism and commentary. The same thing that I'm going to be doing in this video. So just to give a heads up to you all, I will be using clips from Dr. Mike's video in my video for the uses of criticism and commentary, which falls underneath the U.S. legal doctrine of fair use. So just in case Dr. Mike YouTube or any of Dr. Mike's fans feel the need to try to flag down this video, I just want to once again let you guys know that apparently me and Dr. Mike are not violating any community guidelines by using clips of other people's content in our video. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this video. Dr. Mike is a fellow content creator and doctor with a little over 5 million subscribers. Now, with him being a doctor and having such a heavy fan base, it's no wonder they all flock to him seeking his opinion on the Part 1 clip of the Plandemic documentary that was released starring Judy Mikovits. So, of course, he released a video so-called fact-checking Plandemic, which is what this video is going to be about. Now, as a lot of you know, ever since Part 1 was released, it's been spreading like wildfire all over social media, especially YouTube, and being flagged as inappropriate content or violating community guidelines, which is something that was touched on in the Plandemic documentary. Them not allowing dissenting voices to be heard anymore throughout this pandemic, which is a form of limiting our freedom of speech. But the interviewer used the word dissent for a reason, because dissent means to have or express an opinion different from a prevailing or official position, basically to disagree, which is exactly what's happening. Anything that goes against the popular narrative we've been given has been banned, removed, etc. But Dr. Mike says
they're dissenting voices, and I'm hearing them right now, and no one's arresting them for saying this. That is the definition of free speech.
Now, I pointed this out right in the beginning of this video for a reason. What the good doctor here is doing is called twisting of words, or what I call pure manipulation. They did not say that they are limiting their freedom of speech. They said there are no dissenting voices allowed anymore. And as you can see, there's a clear difference between freedom of speech and dissent. It's all about context, Dr. Mike. Now, obviously, we are allowed to speak and share our thoughts on anything, and people are. But those same people sharing opposing views that you don't have to agree with, by the way, are having their videos banned, removed, they're being fired, they're afraid to lose their jobs or licenses, etc. for speaking out or being in disagreement with the popular narratives we're being fed that are forever changing. And if you were paying any attention, your video is prime example of this. Notice how your video hasn't been flagged or removed for violating guidelines, even though you are playing clips of the so-called inappropriate content throughout your entire video. But it's been up for over 24 hours, no problem. Could it be because you're attempting to debunk the documentary? So therefore, the agreed upon narrative remains and they have no problem with your content. One has to speculate that this is true, and one might also have to speculate that you may have been paid handsomely to do this video since you and Fosse have been in contact, and this documentary is heavily against him. One wonders. Now anyway, speaking of Fosse, when you brought him up is just yet another time you deflected away from what was actually being said in the video that you were playing. Here's an example.
Dr. Fauci came on my YouTube channel and said very clearly that it is his belief and the general consensus of experts that if you get sick with COVID-19, you are most likely going to be immune from getting it again.
So first of all, she's not the one who brought up anything about reinfections or immunities, anything like that. He's the one who inserted this clip in here after she was talking about them holding off on certain therapeutics that can help people in order to push the vaccines on people. Basically saying that they wanted people to become infected so that they could be able to push these vaccines. So exactly how we got to a clip of Fosse claiming that people who have been infected are immune for life was definitely confusing. And not only that, but that is not even true. According to recent reports, individual immunity has not been proven yet, much less herd immunity. Herd immunity is what Judy Mikovits was referencing when she discussed how they were holding off on the therapeutics in order to be able to push their vaccines.
It's like any other virus, you're going to have lasting immunity.
So if everyone is infected with it, why would we need a vaccine? It doesn't make sense. We don't want people infected with it. Here the government is saying...
Just reference to your earlier conversation about lifting the lockdown. We know that we haven't infected enough of the population with this virus.
We haven't infected enough of the population with this virus.
Herd immunity is how a society collectively fights off infections to keep the transmission of disease low. Basically, the more people that are immune, the fewer people a virus can jump to and the fewer it can affect. Experts believe that at least 70% of the population will need to be immune to the virus in order to achieve herd immunity. And they believe that a COVID-19 vaccine, while being months away, is the best chance to achieve herd immunity. So yes, they need people to become infected to reach the herd immunity percentage we need to slow down the virus. And since we are social distancing and on stay-at-home orders, it may never reach that percentage. So vaccines are the better option according to reports. Coming out of social distancing to reach that number could cause more deaths to the older population, like what happened in Sweden. Their parks, schools, and restaurants have remained open, but 80% of the 2,000 COVID deaths have been elderly. But they are close to reaching their herd immunity numbers by doing this.
If a company, a pharmaceutical company, had a medicine that worked for autism, why in the world would they give up those profits and shelf that medicine? It's not like they're doing it in lieu of another treatment that's going to make them more money. We don't have a medication for autism. It just doesn't make sense to me, what she's saying.
That's a very good question. Why would Bayer shelf a medicine that could possibly help children with autism? We don't know, but that's exactly what happened. According to research, a man named Dr. Robert had had success when he ran a trial with Suramin on some children with autism. All children who received a single dose of Suramin showed improvements in the core symptoms of autism. So they wanted to run another more controlled study to really determine if the drug helped. But Bayer chose not to provide the drug for the trials. They shelved it. So the biotech company that was funding the trials agreed to manufacture Suramin instead.
This is amazing. Actually, the USA Today even came out and debunked the theory that one of the Gates Foundation subsidiaries could have had a patent on something related to coronavirus. It just wasn't true.
Yeah, they did come out trying to debunk this by saying that yes, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded the Pirbright Institute. And yes, the Pirbright Institute does hold a coronavirus vaccine patent, but it's for the IBV in chickens or other animals. They conveniently left out the part about how it's also made for humans. If you look underneath the vaccination method part of this patent, it outright says that the vaccine of the invention may be used to treat a human, animal, or avian subject. The coronavirus of the present invention may be used to treat and or prevent a disease. The disease may be any disease caused by a coronavirus, such as respiratory disease in humans, encephalitis, or respiratory diseases in other animals. They also say that the disease may be IBV, porcine diarrhea, mouse hepatitis, SARS or blue comb, etc. Then they go on to list how a physician or a veterinarian will determine the actual dose. So it looks like you do actually hold a coronavirus vaccine patent that's used for pretty much all coronaviruses that can infect humans, which would include SARS-CoV-2 then. So,
First saw that, I was moved. I was like, wait, can it be possible that these doctors, these researchers for major government organizations are making millions of dollars at the expense of millions of people dying? So I looked into it and I stumbled upon an article in the British Medical Journal, which is a highly, highly respected medical journal. The press agency reported that two leading researchers, Anthony Fauci, head of the NIAID, and his deputy, Clifford Lane, received payments relating to their development of IL-2 as a treatment for HIV/AIDS. Dr. Lane told the BMJ that the payment was part of his federal compensation. He explained that the government patented the development and shared the payments it received with the inventors. Since 1997, he has received about $45,000. She's saying that Clifford Lane, the deputy of the NIAID, and Dr. Fauci did this for $45,000 to forego your creed to protect people and instead to watch millions die? Dr. Anthony Fauci told the BMJ that as a government employee, he was required by law to put his name on the patent for the development of IL-2 and was also required by law to receive a part of the payment the government received for use of the patent. He said that he felt it was inappropriate to receive payment and donated the entire amount to charity. If she wants me to believe the claim she's making here, she needs to disprove this.
Well, first of all, Dr. Mike, how is Judy supposed to figure out what Dr. Fauci did with financials he received from a drug that he patented and got paid for? How do we know that the money that was paid to charity and was paid to these inventors by the government was an actual pay-offs instead of payments? Isn't that something that Dr. Fauci should be coming out and proving? Not Judy? Second of all, she didn't mention anything about a Clifford Lane, but she did talk about Robert Gallo and Robert Redfield. Now, Robert Redfield, you touched on, but Robert Gallo, you seem to have completely just dismissed, and that was a very big, important part of this story. Now, Judy started off her story by saying that back in 1983, she was working with a team who first isolated HIV and AIDS patients. She then took that publication back with her to Rossetti. Now, Fauci had gotten wind that Rossetti and her had this publication and he wanted it. Now, for those of you who do not know, the name of the game when it comes to viruses is basically a popularity contest. Who can name that virus first? Now, Fauci, showed up to her job, and he claimed that he wanted it, and if she didn't give it over, he would fire her, but she still refused to give it over until Rossetti came back into town. And then he was bullied into handing over this paperwork, which Fossey then held onto, giving Robert Gallo the time to come out claiming that he too had discovered HIV in AIDS patients. Now, the next thing you know, patents started going up that were more directed towards the IL-2 therapy, something that Fossey had been working on since 1985, that she claimed does not work for AIDS patients. And this happens to be true because I found an article from 2017 where they did a study on IL-2 and they determined that it wasn't really effective for AIDS patients, just like she said. And she also pointed out the fact that maybe if y'all had just went with the research that said that HIV was the cause of AIDS in 1983 instead of doing all of this debating and then even more debating on whether or not it came from a primate or not, which y'all finally determined 16 years later, y'all may have saved a lot more people than the millions of people who died. Okay, guys, so this would be the end of part 1, but it would not be the end of this fact check. So, to check out part 2, please click the link in my description box or check out the video section of my channel. Stay tuned.